They thought humans were fragile, soft, slow, easy to break. That lie ended the moment the Zythek Empire invaded Helion 3 and watched one broken human stand back up. His ribs were shattered, his armor crushed, he could barely breathe, yet he rose anyway. And in that single, impossible moment, the galaxy learned the truth. Humans don't lose because we're strong. We win because we refuse to stay down.
Helion 3's sky burned green when the Zythek dropships cracked through the atmosphere. Civilians scattered. Defense grids failed. The colony's automated distress signals jittered across the void, begging for reinforcements that would never arrive in time. Corporal Rian Hale knew the truth the moment he saw the swarm descending. They weren't coming to conquer. They were coming to erase. Rian and the last 30 defenders took position along the colony's outer barricade, a half-collapsed line of reinforced polymer and scorched metal. Every heartbeat shook dust loose from the towers. Every breath tasted like melted iron. "Hold until evacuation finishes," Captain Arwen barked through static. "That's all we need, just 15 minutes." But 15 minutes could be an eternity. The sky split open as the Zythek legions charged, their bodies glinting like serrated obsidian. The ground trembled beneath millions of armored limbs. Their war chant, a shrill, chittered scream, knifed through the comms. Rian's pulse hammered. Fear clawed for space in his chest, but he swallowed it down. Someone had to stay standing. Someone had to remind the others why they were here. The swarm hit the barricade like a tidal wave. Explosions shattered the air. Screams drowned in static. Metal bent under unimaginable force. Rian fired until his rifle overheated, then grabbed another and another. Shrapnel tore across his side, burning deep enough to crack bone. The world flashed white, then red, then blurred. "Rian, fall back!" Arwen yelled, but the civilians weren't clear yet. He wiped the blood from his eyes and stood again, bracing against the next impact. If humanity broke today, Helion 3 would not be the only world to fall. The barricade gave out with a scream of tearing metal. Entire segments folded like paper, crushed by the weight of the Zythek tide. Defenders were thrown backward, bodies slamming into scorched ground. Rian hit the wall hard enough that the world went black around the edges. When he staggered up, half the battalion was already down. Captain Arwen dragged a wounded medic behind cover, blood running down her temple. The air tasted of plasma discharge and burning polymer. "Perimeter is gone," someone shouted. "Fall back to the inner gate." But the inner gate would only buy them minutes. Rian stumbled forward, firing into the swarm. Each alien he brought down was instantly replaced by 3 more. They moved like a single organism, efficient, merciless, endless. A Zythek warrior twice his size slammed into him, claws ripping through his chest plate. Pain exploded through his ribs. The creature raised its scythe arm to finish him. Instinct or desperation kicked in. Rian jammed his combat knife into its throat joint and twisted. The alien shrieked, collapsing onto him in a twitching heap. He shoved it aside, coughing blood. Humans weren't built to fight like this, not against creatures bred in war hatcheries, not against empires that measured battles in planetary graves. The defenders retreated yard by yard. Civilians sprinted through the evacuation corridor behind them, escorted by trembling volunteers. Then the Zythek warlord descended, a towering monster of armored bone plates, glowing mandibles, and living blades. Its landing cracked the ground. Its presence drowned out every other sound. "Human defenders, your weakness has been measured. Your extinction." A plasma bolt hit the warlord in the side of the jaw. Rian lowered his smoking rifle. "We're still here." The warlord's eyes flared. Then it charged. The warlord hit Rian like a meteor. His armor split open. His ribs snapped like brittle twigs. He tasted metal and dirt and blood as he skidded across the battlefield. The world twisted, blurred, then snapped back into unbearable focus. He couldn't move his left arm. His legs felt like dead weight. But he could still breathe. Barely. The warlord approached with slow, deliberate steps, savoring the moment. "You are broken," it hissed, "as all your kind shall be." Rian spat blood at its feet. "Keep thinking that." The creature's mandibles flared with irritation. "You fight with no hope. You resist with no strength.
Why? Rickanon tried to stand and failed. His vision flickered, his bones screamed. But inside that pain was something the Zythek could not catalog or dissect. Defiance. Because we don't stop until everyone behind us is safe. The warlord tilted its head in something like confusion. Humans were unpredictable, illogical, dangerous because they refused to follow patterns. Rickanon pressed his functioning hand into the ground and pushed. Every nerve ignited in agony. His spine felt like it was splitting. But inch by inch, breath by breath, he forced himself upright. When he finally reached his feet, the entire battlefield went silent. Even the Zythek froze. Humans were supposed to stay down, but this one didn't. "This stand means nothing," the warlord growled. "You're right," Rickanon whispered. "It means everything." The warlord lunged.
The warlord struck like a thunderbolt. Rian dodged, barely, but the force knocked him onto one knee. His lungs seized, his vision dimmed, but in that darkness came a memory, the faces of the family still fleeing behind the inner walls. He forced himself up again. The warlord slashed. Rian ducked. His body screamed in protest. He fired point blank at the creature's shoulder joint. Sparks burst, but the armor barely dented. "You cannot harm me," the warlord thundered. "Maybe not alone," Rian rasped. A sniper shot whistled from the ramparts, striking the warlord's exposed flank. Another blast followed, and another. The defenders, seeing Rian still fighting, rallied. Energy bolts rained down on the warlord from all directions. The creature shrieked, enraged. It turned toward the snipers. Rian seized his chance. He grabbed a drop detonation charge, sprinted forward with what remained of his strength, and slammed it into the warlord's wounded side. The monster whipped around, slicing into his shoulder and sending him sprawling, but the charge was already blinking. Rian triggered it. A concussive blast lit the battlefield. The warlord staggered, armor cracked and leaking. Not dead, but weakened. Human cheers rose behind Rian. The warlord roared and backhanded him across the ground. Bones shattered. Everything went dark. But he forced one eye open, forced breath into crushed lungs. He wasn't finished. Not yet. Because something had changed. The soldiers were no longer retreating. They were advancing. And it all started because one human refused to die when he was supposed to.
Rian drifted in and out of consciousness as the warlord approached again, limping but furious. "You persist," it hissed. "Why? You should be dead." "Probably," Rian groaned, trying to stand again. "But you underestimate the wrong species." His body no longer listened, his legs buckled, but every time he fell, he forced himself back up. And every time he rose, the defender shouted louder. Humans had a saying, strong bodies break, strong wills don't. The warlord lunged. A rocket struck its jaw mid-charge. Sergeant Vale stepped beside Rian, breathing hard. "You're not done until we're all done, understood?" Rian gave a bloody grin. "Thought you'd never show." The humans gathered around him in a tightening formation, wounded, exhausted, terrified, but unified. The Zythek R charged again. This time the humans didn't run. Grenades detonated at its feet, plasma fire melted armor plates, precision shots targeted every exposed nerve cluster. The Zythek, for the first time, faltered. Rian saw its hesitation, its realization, its fear. Humans weren't the weak species the galaxy whispered about. We were the species that crawled through fire and stood anyway. The species that fought even with broken bones. The species that didn't know how to surrender. Rian charged one last time, screaming through the pain. The humans surged behind him. And the warlord, the creature bred to dominate entire civilizations, took a single step back. That was the moment the Zythek Empire lost the battle. Not when the warlord fell, but when it realized humanity would rather die than kneel.
Smoke curled off the warlord's wounded frame as it charged again, fury overriding instinct. Rian braced himself, vision swimming. His body screamed for rest, for air, for mercy. but mercy was a luxury Helion 3 couldn't afford. He grabbed a fallen spear like Zythek blade, its edge humming with alien energy. The warlord swung at him, but Vale and the others fired a hail of suppressing blasts, forcing it to slow. Rian ducked under the creature's arm, dragging the blade across its exposed inner joint. A torrent of iridescent blue blood erupted. The creature shrieked, a sound that shook the metal towers. Rian collapsed to one knee, barely able to hold the blade. "Finish it!" Vale yelled. Ryan's breath rasped. "Help me up!" Two soldiers hauled him upright. His legs barely functioned, but together they braced him. The warlord lunged for a final killing blow. Rian thrust the alien blade upward. The weapon pierced the warlord's core. Light erupted from its chest in a violent pulse. The creature froze, limbs shaking, mandibles clicking weakly. Human soldiers watched in silent awe as the monster collapsed, the ground trembling beneath its weight. Rian stood over the fallen titan, barely conscious. He didn't celebrate. He didn't yell. He simply breathed, because that was all he had left. The Zythek swarm, sensing the death of their leader, hesitated. Then they retreated. The impossible had happened. Humanity had broken the unbreakable.
Evacuation ships roared into the sky, carrying the last civilians to safety. The remaining defenders gathered around Rian, who lay half-conscious on the cracked ground. Medical drones scanned him, alarms blaring. "How is he even alive?" one medic whispered. "He shouldn't be," another replied. But Rian wasn't listening. He stared at the sky, watching the Zythek ships retreat into the stars. Nearby, Captain Arwen knelt. "You saved the colony. Hell, you saved our reputation." Rian forced a weak smile. "Didn't do it alone." "No," she said softly, "but you showed us how." Across the galaxy, various species monitored the battle. They watched the footage again and again. A broken human standing against an unstoppable monster. A soldier who refused to stay down even when it meant certain death. The whispers changed. Humans were no longer weak, no longer fragile, no longer breakable. A new word spread instead. Terrifying. Within days, 3 alien factions withdrew planned offensives against human colonies. 2 offered treaties. 1 simply vanished from known space entirely. No one wanted to face a species that fought like Rian Hale did. As Rian was loaded into a med transport, Vale placed a hand on his shoulder. "You changed everything today." Rian shook his head slowly. "We all did." But deep down, he knew the truth. The galaxy didn't fear humanity's weapons. It feared humanity's will. If one broken soldier could kill a warlord, what could a united humanity do?